Dropping new episodes on Tuesdays. Night Court Season 3 premieres November 19th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time/Pacific Time on NBC. The multi-camera sitcom ended on a massive cliffhanger, leaving fans reeling long after the Season 2 finale blinked off their screens. The best Dan sees Melissa Rauch's character, Abby, decide to take the next step in her relationship with Jake, Ryan Hansen, at Roz's, Marsha Warfield, wedding. However, she makes a startling discovery when she speaks with Jake's mom. Susan reveals that she dated a lawyer who worked in the Manhattan courtroom about a year before her son was born. Abby appears to be in shock, suddenly noticing an uncanny resemblance between Dan and her boyfriend. The episode ends with Flaubert coming to the same realization and telling Abby that Jake may be Dan's biological son, and that is out of cake pops. John Larroquette, if you watch Season 2, you know it ended with the possibility of Abby's boyfriend being the offspring of Dan Fielding and an old love from the 80s, and we will discover more of that in the first 2 episodes of the 3rd season. I'd rather not get into it any further than that, so people are surprised by the outcome, but it's a possibility. And psychologically and spiritually, Fielding goes through some changes during the process of wondering until the facts are known. So we'll see. And it is fun too. It's fun because of Abby's emotional tie to it as well. There's a lot of opportunity for comedy and heartfelt emotions within that whirl of, what happens if? John Larroquette, yeah, being an executive producer on the show, I'm pretty much aware of all the areas that we're going to be going into, and Dan Rubin and I talked a lot about it. When Ryan first appeared as the HR fellow in that episode, he had great comic timing, and he's a very handsome fellow and fun to be around. He's a real player. I learned more about him from my youngest son, Benjamin, who's also the composer of Night Court. He was a real fan of his on Party Down, and so he clued me in and said, "You've got to watch him." And so I watched his work there and became a fan of his, as well. Nyambi Nyambi, I hope so. I hope we get to see me work through it, because it'll be more pain and anguish, which is always fun. Always fun. But what I love so far is just how much of a dad you get to see him be. I think you'll get to see me work through that and work through not being the same sort of cool, fun-loving single man that I once was before kids. Certainly before I had a wife and then did not have one. John Larroquette, we got a little hint of that, didn't we? With Comic-Con? The fact that Wyatt had all these great plans of what a night it was going to be, and he winds up dressing in the costume that his daughters made him get into. So he is definitely a dad, and I certainly see an episode where we're going to see more of that. Where the man of him comes out, but yet the dad is prominent and has to be used. Nyambi Nyambi, my superpower will be dad. Nyambi Nyambi, no, I feel like it gets worse and worse. The further I get away from my 20s, the worse it gets. When I see basketball players, whenever they were at their greatest, their hairstyles stuck right there. So then when they're 40, 50, 60, they have the same hairstyle from when they were at the height of their game. I feel like that'll be me. Whatever I was at the height of the game, I'm still trying to give that, and it's just not working. Nyambi Nyambi, that's a great question. If I was executive producing, I'd be able to tell you. I wish we had an executive producer here to let us know. Looks at John Larroquette, I hope so. John Larroquette, the reality is that we don't think that far ahead. There's no big Bible arc on this particular show. It's like, what is going to happen this week? And certainly stories linger, and they bleed over into each other, as we found with the cliffhanger from the 2nd season into this. And even the first show of this season is still a cliffhanger. Even the 2nd show of this season, nothing is truly resolved in the premiere episode. But as we sit around talking about ideas for shows, all of this will come up. But there's no like, oh, in episode 7, we're going to meet Wyatt's ex-wife. We don't think quite that far ahead because you're working so much on the show that you're working on that week to make it as funny as possible. Those ideas come to you and then you write them down and put them on the side and put them on a board somewhere and talk about them as we go down the line. But all of those things we've set up are ripe for exploration. Wyatt's children, Wyatt's ex-wife, God knows who, but that could be a humdinger. All of a sudden she shows up, and preferably as the defendant, and she's actually been arrested for something, and then we go from there. Let's see what happens. Nothing like that has been truly discussed yet.